Good afternoon, everybody. This is Richard Moore in Depth. I'm Richard Moore, and this is the audio cast version of Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. I know it's not Wednesday morning when those of you who are listening to this are listening to it, but it's Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. As I'm recording it from the North Woods of Wisconsin, where we have a lot of snow and ice out there, but it hasn't been too cold of a winter. I love Wednesday mornings at 3 a.m. It's when I love every morning at 3 a.m. It's when I get most of my Substack writing and investigative reporting, the writing part done. Without interruptions. And so that's part of the reason I call this segment Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. I'll get into another reason in another audio cast. Glad you could be with me. I'm launching this as an audio cast rather than a written version for two reasons, which I want to explain. The first reason is, and again, this will be for everybody today, but next week, this will be for starting next week or the week after for premium subscribers. The reason being is that I can get more information to you. The in-depth written pieces that I do, I will continue to do, but there's a lot of stuff, shorter takes on national and state issues that I just can't get to. And so I can get it out faster and get more information, so you get more for your subscription if I do an audio cast. And a lot of these audio casts, there will be transcripts, not all of them, but a lot of them there will be. The second reason I'm doing Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. as an audio cast is that this is a forerunner to a project that I'm very excited about. I'm going to be launching a new podcast. I did a podcast, some of you may remember, about 8 years ago, maybe 9, 10 years ago. And I'm reviving that. And there's some good guests, some spectacular guests that I'm working to get, such as working to get Robert F. Kennedy, who was so kind to plug Jr., who was so kind to plug my book last year, Dark State, and also adding some new people to the mix and people that I've worked with before to co-host the podcast. Very exciting, but I don't have the details. It's not all worked out, but I'll let you know that as we go forward. And I will also be upgrading the audio equipment so we have a more professional sound. But at the moment, I just wanted to get this going, so I'm just going with what Substack offers in terms of the equipment. As a part of this being a forerunner, next week I am also going to post an interview that I just had. This is a very compelling interview with former Supreme Court Justice Daniel Kelly, and I hope this will be for everybody, and I hope everybody will. Um, uh, Take a listen, because we touch on a broad range of issues in this interview that I had the good fortune to spend this past Sunday afternoon with him. And this interview that will be posted, that portion went on for well more than an hour. And we touched on a broad range of issues, like I say, from the administrative state to the First Amendment, issues that even if you don't live in Wisconsin, these are issues that involve the national courts as well. So it frames the whole constitutional range of his conservative judicial philosophy. He's a brilliant man. He's running in the primary for state Supreme Court justice, which will be February 21st. And there are four candidates in that race, and I will get to the other candidates in another audio cast. Then the top two vote getters go to April 4th, I believe it is. I think he's our best bet for conservatives. It's a very important judicial election if you live here in Wisconsin, because it will determine whether conservatives keep the majority 4-3 on the Supreme Court that they have now. Sort of a conservative majority. Those of you who live in the state know what I'm talking about. Or whether the progressives take control, which is a terrifying thought and possibility. But at any rate, that will be posted next week. Justice Kelly was appointed to the state Supreme Court by Governor Scott Walker in 2016. He was defeated by progressive Joe Karofsky in 2020, I think only because in that election is a spring election. It's a technically nonpartisan election, and it was held on the same day as the Democratic presidential primary, where you had Biden and Bernie Sanders running. So, the Democratic turnout was phenomenal, and that was his downfall in that election. It's time for a rematch, and you will enjoy this conversation. I want to talk about two things today. One national, one from the state of Wisconsin. I'll get to the second one on the state of Wisconsin. It involves Tony Evers' State of the State address last night. Kind of what he said was not was not surprising. It was totally unsurprising. You'd expect it from a liberal Democrat, but some of the reaction from the Republicans was disturbing. I'll get to that in after we talk about the national issue, and that is all that's going on with these classified documents scandals. Now they've got classified documents turning up at Mike Pence's house, and oh my gosh, wherever. And I want to, there's all sorts of theories about what's going on, particularly that predominate on the right. But I want to talk about what I think is going on. And what I think is happening right now is that you're watching unfold before our very eyes the Democratic Party presidential primary. I mean, these ongoing scandals have raised far more questions and yielded than they have given us answers. But there is at this point, I think, a couple of things that are certain. First, as insiders have known for a very long time, the United States government classifies way too many documents. This isn't a good look in a democratic republic. I mean, our survival depends on transparency. You know me, I'm all about open government. And the more documents you classify, the less transparent you are. And it should be held to the bare minimum what's needed for national securities. If government officials get the chance, though, they'll classify the grocery list. And once you get too many documents classified, they're bound to travel out and about beyond where they're supposed to be. And so that leads us to the second thing we know. There are apparently classified documents floating around everywhere in Washington. They're in the garage, they're at the think tank, they're probably behind the toilet bowl. Joe Biden, especially, has left them around town. He's sort of like a trail of breadcrumbs. The mechanic for his Corvette probably found some in the trunk, probably some in the wheel well. Here's the third thing we know. The Biden tranche of classified documents was exposed because some people, some powerful people, wanted to damage Joe Biden. We might not know who leaked the documents, but we know why, because there is absolutely no way those documents would have ever seen the light of day after so many years hidden away, unless Democrats and their partners were behind it. The timing also likely confirms it, doesn't it? I mean, while the documents were first turned over to the DOJ in November, the public leak of the investigation came just as Biden was expected to announce his run for re-election. It caused him to delay it. So no doubt he told the powers that be that he was going to be their main man one more time, and someone designed a way to derail him, at least temporarily so. So did it come from the deep state agencies, DOJ whistleblowers? Did it come from inside the FBI? Everybody's wondering, everybody's asking the question, did it come from inside the White House itself? Again, we don't know, but it's too soon to tell whether the ploy, if this was actually meant to stop Joe Biden from running again, which many on the right think, it's too soon to tell whether this ploy will actually work. For one thing, um, the thing that moved Biden to try to keep on keeping on into his second term was his rising standing in public opinion polls. Also, his effective victory in the midterm elections. He didn't turn out to be an albatross around the neck of Democrats after all. In fact, you can argue that he effectively helped the Democrats win the midterms. So back to it is again, the prevailing theory on the right is that despite all that, Democratic Party elites still want him gone because they don't think the shine will last. By election day, in this view, Biden's policies, the wrecked economy, will catch up with him, not to mention the accelerating dementia. And Americans simply won't vote for a guy who can't remember on some days that he is even the president. Now, there's a lot, I think, to counter that theory. First, his disastrous policies didn't hurt his party's chances this past November. Neither did his dementia. And not to mention that the woke left controls the Democratic Party, and the Biden administration gives the woke left everything it wants. Why on earth would they want to get rid of him? And if you look right now at public opinion polls, there's simply no reason to believe that any Democrat is going to be deterred from voting from Uncle Joe just because his dementia is serious. You know, when I was growing up, very, very young in the American South, it was still at the time when I was a child, was still very solidly Democratic. I mean, just for example, Jack Kennedy won the state of South Carolina where I was growing up. So, at that time, Southern Democrats were known as yellow dog Democrats. I don't know if you've heard the term, but it meant that if you were a Southern Democrat, they would go out and they would vote for the old yellow dog if it was on the ballot as a Democrat. And that sort of seems true of woke Democrats nationally today. They are the yellow dog Democrats, and Joe Biden, even a comatose Joe Biden, is their yellow dog if he's at the top of the ticket and if he's still breathing. So it's hard to believe that the party deep state powers don't think Biden can win, especially if the opponent is Trump. They want to run against Trump. Maybe they do think he can't win, or maybe they just think it's time to have a real and younger wokester as president, say Gavin Newsom. And then there's this. Just last week, week before last, actually, powerful Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina declared that there would be one and only one candidate he would support, Joe Biden. As Clyburn goes, so goes the Southern black vote in the Democratic primaries down there, where blacks are the majority in most of those primaries. That vote was the key to Biden's victory in 2020. It'll be key again. And it's hard to see anybody but Joe winning those primaries. Gavin Newsom comes into the Southern Democratic primaries, and if it's he versus Biden, Biden's going to kill him. Now, back to the classified documents. Nobody, and I mean nobody, cares a whit about those classified documents when there's so much else to worry about in this world. War, nuclear war, inflation, you name it. The American public doesn't care about Biden's classified documents or Trump's or now Mike Pence's classified documents. It's just a big nothing burger, except in one scenario. And that's when there is something really, or when or if there is something really sensitive in those documents, and that information was compromised. Now, again, we don't know what's in those documents, but the deep state and Joe Biden's family does. And if it's nothing, fine. But if the information in those documents turn up, say, in Hunter Biden's emails and has been sent to third parties or foreign governments, well, then Biden would be toast. And if that's the case, it would explain the exposure of the documents far more so than if their exposure was just a political ploy undertaken because some faction of the deep state didn't think Biden could win again. So that would be believable. Any way you look at it, though, it's all part of this grand maneuvering inside the left, and perhaps it's the signal of a power struggle. I mean, either way, if Biden has to resign because of the scandal and perhaps a looming indictment on the one hand, it would be interesting to see who the Democrats run in 2024 in his stead. Or if this amounts to nothing, as I frankly think it will, it'll be interesting to see who his vice president will be. That vice president almost certainly will not be Kamala Harris. The party elite deep state will likely demand a player of theirs to take that spot, especially with the very real possibility, nay, probability, that Biden does not get through a complete second term should he win re-election. So finally, there are two other theories floating around. One is rather far-fetched scenario is that the document exposure was designed not to damage Biden, but to boost Donald Trump, who had been hurting in the polls lately and whom the deep state desperately wants to face again, rather than face Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. So embroiling in this scenario, and I don't buy into it, but here it is, embroiling Biden in the same type of fiasco because the documents are innocuous so that he's not going to get impeached or anything, would be a way to let Trump off the hook for doing the same thing and lift him in the polls. And sure enough, if you buy into this, Trump now leads, once again, DeSantis in Republican polls and Biden in national surveys since these scandals emerged. So the betting on the left would be that this would get DeSantis not to run, and that Trump would implode by election day. All kind of risky, though, to undertake, and I'm not sure anybody could think of it. Dan Bongino has another thought, and that this is all designed to boost Biden. So he was talking on his show the other day that both Biden and Trump now face investigations by independent special counsels. And as he pointed out, the independent counsels aren't really independent, and they would be unconstitutional if they were, but instead they report to Merrick Garland. So, what if the marching orders to the special counsel overseeing the Trump probe comes out with damaging findings right before the presidential election, while the special counsel for the Biden probe issues a final report right before the election, leaving Biden smelling like a rose? And so it could be just all a clever setup and political maneuver, but perhaps too clever for the Democrats to think up, much less pull off. So, simply put, we don't know what is going on behind the scenes with those classified document exposures, but clearly some shenanigans are because they were exposed and by the Democratic Party and their partners. The players are somewhere deep in the party elite and the deep state. So, but whatever the motive, whatever the outcomes, the jockeying is about who is going to replace Joe Biden either sooner as the next presidential nominee if Biden goes down before the next election, or later as the sitting vice president if Biden gets reelected and then dies or is compelled to resign. In either scenario, it's going to be the same person, a wokester in waiting, the heir apparent to the deep state throne. What's going on in the classified document drama is the real Democratic primary for president. It's playing out right now before our very eyes.